Her daughter-in-law locked the sliding door, while Dot sat outside in 107-degree Fahrenheit heat. Dot Hanley, retired loan officer and widow, didn't knock twice. Kyle, her only son and once co-signer, laughed and poured another drink. By week's end, their names were gone from the mortgage, the title, and every account they thought they controlled. She'd once guaranteed their roof. Now she was triggering the sale clause. And when the buyers walked through her kitchen, Amanda finally realized the patio wasn't the only thing getting cleared. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The sky cracked open just after 6, the kind of California blue that promised heat and delivered hell. Dot Hanley was already up, slippers brushing against the faded kitchen tile as she poured herself exactly half a mug of black coffee. She liked to watch the shadows move before the world got loud. Her movements were precise, a remnant of her years in lending, where a decimal out of place could unravel a home. She swept the back porch with short, deliberate strokes, pausing now and then to rub her wrist. The broom bristles scraped against dust and dry leaves, sound brittle in the still morning. From her perch, she could already see the shimmer on the asphalt street, heat climbing like smoke. The forecast had said 107, the kind of heat that didn't just press down but reached inside your chest, slow and punishing. Inside, a blast of TV static gave way to a sharp voice. Extreme heat warning remains in effect across the Central Valley. Amanda's painted fingernail tapped the remote, and the voice cut mid-sentence. "We get it," she said, laughing without looking at Dot. "It's just summer." Kyle, standing behind her with a bottle of sports drink, snorted. "Mom's from Texas. She'll be fine out there." Dot didn't reply. She picked up the folded throw blanket from the porch swing and gave it a sharp shake. Dust swirled and caught the rising light. She was always careful with silence. It could say more than words if you held it long enough. By 11 o'clock, the air had stopped moving. Even the flies seemed exhausted. Dot had finished washing the outdoor furniture cushions and hung a hand towel from her collar. No one asked her to. No one ever did. She liked things clean, respectable, predictable. She reached for the sliding glass door, fingertips brushing the metal handle. Locked. She tried again. A slight rattle. Still locked. She leaned closer, squinting into the glare of the interior. Amanda was pouring 2 tall glasses of something over ice, citrus wedges floating lazily at the top. Kyle was talking at the kitchen island, his gestures animated, sweat darkening the collar of his t-shirt. The door remained closed. Dot knocked, once firm, waited. No one turned around. A second knock, sharper this time. The sound thudded against the double-glazed glass. Inside, Amanda walked right past her, not even a glance. The blender roared to life. Kyle leaned in to kiss her neck. Dot stepped back. The sun hit her fully then. No mercy. Her cotton blouse clung to her spine. She steadied herself against the siding, her breath thin. It wasn't just the heat, it was the calculation. She turned and sat slowly in the faded lawn chair near the edge of the yard, its plastic arms warped from too many Julys. The grass underneath had yellowed weeks ago. The dog days of Modesto didn't care about drought ordinances or elderly lungs. Dot folded her hands in her lap and stared out past the fence where the Ortega house sat quiet and curtained. Time passed in odd stretches. A cicada screamed somewhere overhead. Her tongue felt like dry wool. She thought of the little boys she used to see at the bank, tapping the glass doors with their sticky hands while their mothers argued overdraft fees. The heat then was never like this. The sun moved, no one came. It wasn't until 4:17 p.m. She checked the watch out of habit, not hope, that Becca's car pulled into the driveway. The teen slammed the door and tossed her bag over one shoulder, earbuds still in, walking fast toward the house. Dot didn't move. She didn't wave. She just watched. Becca turned the knob and stopped. Her gaze shifted left, saw her grandmother, saw her sweat-soaked blouse, the towel limp around her neck. "Oh my God, Grandma?" Dot blinked slowly. The air felt thick like soup. Her voice came low and precise, the way it always had when she was most angry. "He knows better than to forget alone," she said, the corner of her lip twitching upward. "Or a mother." Becca's mouth opened, but whatever she was about to say froze. Dot had already turned her head, eyes fixed once again on the locked glass door. That night, when the house had cooled and everyone else was asleep, Kyle red-faced from too many beers, Amanda with her phone dimmed under the sheets, Dot stood in the dim glow of her sunroom. Her fingers still trembling slightly, opened the bottom drawer of her small chest. From beneath old utility bills and a laminated voter registration form, she pulled out a black fireproof lockbox. She turned the combination wheel, with a steadiness that came from years of watching grown men try to bluff their way through loan negotiations. Click. The lid opened. Dot reached inside and pulled out a crisp folder, its edges still sharp. She placed it gently on the bedspread. On the front, bold as memory, co-signed mortgage agreement. Her signature just below Kyle's, same ink, same date. Only one of them remembered what it meant. She slid into the chair by her window and watched the house sleep under the simmering dark. Tomorrow, she thought, would be a different kind of heat. The corners of the folder were still crisp. Dot didn't unfold the mortgage agreement right away. She took her time, adjusting the lamp beside her bed until the light hit just right. Not too bright, not too dull. She didn't need to see the words. She already knew them. Every page had been branded into her brain the way numbers used to etch themselves into her daily life, back when borrowers leaned over her desk, with desperate eyes and shaky pens. She unfolded the first page. Her name sat beneath Kyle's, side by side like an uneasy handshake. Dorothy M. Henley, co-borrower. Ownership interest, 49%. Responsible for all terms as per section C.4, jointly and severally. Kyle had called it just a formality, back then. Amanda hadn't even looked up from her phone. Dot's eyes flicked across the typeface, bone-dry legalese that most people skimmed and forgot. But she had helped write loan conditions stricter than this. They had needed her credit to get approval, and she'd offered it, carefully, reluctantly, with conditions neither of them had bothered to revisit in over 7 years. They should have. She set the folder aside and reached for her reading glasses, the ones with the rubber nose pads and the small scratch in the corner lens. Her laptop booted with a soft whir, the glow of the screen bouncing off the glass of her nightstand water. The lender first portal loaded slowly. Dot's fingers didn't hover. She moved with quiet precision. Property 2918. Cypress Lane, Modesto, California. Loan status. Active payment due July 15 status. Overdue 3 days. She stared at the line. Just 3 days. Enough for a warning. Enough to matter. Not enough to cause a panic yet. But panic wasn't her intention. Not yet. Her cursor moved to the contact list and clicked on the only name that still made sense. Jared Lemon. Account Officer Senior Ret. The phone rang twice. Dorothy? His voice was warm, steady, one of the few she still trusted with facts, not feelings. Let's talk delinquency protocol. There was a pause, then the slow, audible shuffle of paper. You sure, Dot? They're playing house with my name on the deed. That makes me the landlord, not the welcome mat. Jared exhaled, still razor sharp. I'll pull the file. You want to flag for conditional call-in? Not yet, Dot said. I want to watch what they do when the temperature climbs. She ended the call and leaned back, cracking her knuckles, each one popping like a slow typewriter. The house was quiet again. Amanda's heels had clicked upstairs half an hour ago, and Kyle's nightly beer ritual had finished with the sound of the fridge door snapping shut. She could still hear the faint hum of the pool filter outside. Her phone buzzed. Dot opened Instagram, more out of instinct than habit. Becca had once set it up for her, so you can spy without getting caught. Dot never posted. She only watched. The screen lit up with Amanda's new story. A full shot of her stretched on a pool float, sunglasses on, skin oiled like a rotisserie chicken. A glittery cup in one hand, bright pink nails fanned across her chest. Caption: Nothing like dry heat plus chill vibes. Lod Salam one. Dot took a screenshot. Then another of Amanda's next post. A charcuterie board made entirely of Trader Joe's packaging, slapped with hash Modesto Mansion Life. Dot opened a private folder labeled Anibal Sibin, Avigus, and dropped the files in with a satisfying flick. The folder already held dozens of items: late-night Amazon receipts, Kyle's auto insurance downgrade, Amanda's attempt at a GoFundMe for family upgrades, everything time-stamped, everything meticulous. A ping. Text from Jared. We can pull trigger on a conditional call-in. You sure? Dot didn't answer yet. She stared at the screen. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the laptop, layered over the numbers and names, and overdue notices. She reached out, as if to touch it. Then her hand lowered back to her lap, steady and silent, because power, she knew, wasn't just about pulling the trigger. It was about knowing exactly when. The smell of grilling meat floated through the yard before noon, thick and oily, clinging to the air like sweat. From her sunroom, Dot could hear Amanda laughing, high, sharp bursts that sounded more like performance than joy. Plastic chairs scraped across the concrete patio, followed by the screech of Kyle trying to light the charcoal chimney. Country music poured from a Bluetooth speaker, as if volume could substitute for affection. She wasn't invited. No one had said it aloud. Of course, that wasn't Amanda's style. But the new group text for BBQ prep had left her number off entirely, and Dot didn't need a formal snub to understand her place in this home. Out of sight, out of drinks, out of mind. She sat by the window in a wicker armchair, quietly folding the same linen napkin over and over again. Her hands moved gently, but her jaw was tight. Through the screen she watched Amanda twirl poolside in a sundress 2 sizes too small, snapping selfies with a friend in mirrored aviators. Kyle cracked open another IPA with his wedding ring and didn't so much as glance at the sunroom. A soft knock came at the side door. 1, then 2. Dot rose. Mrs. Ortega stood on the porch in orthopedic sandals, her white curls pinned up with a sparkly barrette. In her hand she held a tall, sweating glass of lemonade, garnished with a limp mint sprig. I figured you might want something colder than silence, she said. Dot opened the screen door and accepted the glass. The ice clinked gently against the sides. They throw parties like they own a country club, Mrs. Ortega added. Do they even know what you're worth? Dot sipped once, letting the cold slide down her throat. Her voice was quiet but sure. They'll know soon. She turned from the door without another word, leaving it ajar for Ortega if she wanted to sit. Later that afternoon, while laughter erupted from the yard over a failed beanbag toss, Dot sat at the small writing desk she kept tucked beside her bookshelf. The blinds were half closed, letting thin ribbons of sun stripe the floor. The intent to vacate financial liability form was already drafted. She read it once, twice, then printed a fresh copy and signed with a firm, uncursive hand. She slid the document into a yellow envelope, added a certified mail sticker, and placed it in her outgoing tray. Not email, not text, paper, the kind that lives in filing cabinets long after people forget conversations. The second document, a notarized amendment declaring her auto-pay withdrawal, was shorter, colder. The mortgage would no longer auto-deduct from her account come August. They wouldn't feel it until it was too late. That was the thing about invisible labor. They only noticed when it stopped. At the post office, the clerk with purple lipstick scanned both envelopes and said, "These'll be on their desks by Monday." Dot didn't smile. Perfect. That evening she entered her banking portal and clicked Disable Recurring Payment. A small message popped up. Are you sure you wish to cancel automatic payments for this loan? She clicked yes, without hesitation. From the hallway, she heard the unmistakable ping of Amanda's phone, followed by a squeal. Someone tagged me. Oh my God, that's the one with the floaty. Look, Kyle, my shoulders look amazing. Dot returned to her room, shutting the door softly behind her. A few minutes later, Bucka knocked lightly. Grandma? Dot looked up from the printer, which was slowly spitting out a stack of legal forms. Titles, transfer authorizations, name removal templates. Becca stepped inside, eyebrows pulling together. What are you doing? Just organizing, Dot said, eyes scanning the latest sheet. Becca picked one up, her voice cautious. These are housing transfer documents. Dot looked at her, the lines on her face firm as steel. Paperwork is where power lives. Sweetheart, they just forgot that. Becca hesitated, then gave a small nod. She didn't ask anything else. Dot returned to the desk, sliding the final printed page into a sleek black folder. The same kind her old bank used when it was time to deny an extension, quietly, ruthlessly, and always by the book. The phone rang. Dot recognized the number before she picked up. Jared. Your withdrawal will trigger a warning notice, he said. It'll hit their inbox by 6 a.m. Dot looked out at the backyard, where Amanda now posed with a plate of ribs, backlit by string lights. Good, she said. Let the sunrise do the talking. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Not a special day. Not a memorable one. The kind of day that usually vanishes into the heat haze of July in Modesto. But Dot had been waiting for it like a timer set to boil. She knew the envelope by its color, off-white with the fine gray watermark only banks used. She knew the weight, the tension of the glue seam. Most of all, she knew what it didn't say outright. This house is no longer floating. It's beginning to sink. She watched from the kitchen as Amanda scooped it from the mailbox pile, flipped it once like a playing card, and tossed it on the island between a crate and barrel catalog, and a flyer for lash extensions. Amanda didn't even read the sender. Kyle walked in, shirtless, scratching his chest. What's that one? Amanda barely looked up from her phone. Something from the lender. Kyle waved it off. Probably just a privacy update or new login crap. We're fine. They were not fine. Dot stood in the doorway just long enough to let Amanda see her, then moved down the hall without a word. She wasn't interested in arguing. She had already won the first round. The silence was part of the strike. By evening she began boxing her life in reverse order. Not by need, but by memory. The second bedroom, the one Amanda called the flex space in her Instagram captions, held what was left of Dot's real home, a cedar chest filled with old Christmas ornaments, the chipped porcelain cat Becca had painted when she was 5, and a tarnished bronze locket that no longer closed. She wrapped each item in tissue, slow and precise, like tending a wound. Later that night, after Kyle's second course and Amanda's fourth scroll through Zillow listings she couldn't afford, Dot slipped out the front door with her tote bag tucked under one arm. The P.O. box office was air-conditioned and nearly empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Her sandals echoed against the tile as she filled out the change of address slip, careful to keep her penmanship tight and angled. The clerk barely glanced up. You'll start getting your mail here by the end of the week. Dot nodded. That's the idea. Back at the house, Mrs. Ortega was trimming her rosemary bush when Dot returned. You want me to store anything important? She asked. Not looking up, Dot nodded once. 2 boxes, just until the dust settles. Ortega didn't press. She handed over a key to her backyard shed. The lock already open. Family doesn't always mean home, you know. Dot gave her a quiet smile. I've learned. The next morning Becca walked into the sunroom, eyes scanning the growing stack of sealed boxes along the wall. You moving out? She asked. Voice tight. Dot folded a sheet of newspaper and slid it between 2 picture frames. Just changing location. Becca frowned. What does that mean? Dot looked up, her tone calm but resolute. On paper first. People forget paper is where things start falling apart. Becca didn't speak for a long moment. Then she sat down on the floor and began folding bubble wrap. She didn't ask again. By the 3rd day, the warning letter was still unopened, still on the counter, now with a greasy fingerprint on the corner. Amanda had started using it to level her tripod. That evening, as the sun bled orange into the blinds, Dot opened her laptop to check the portal. No payments. No movement. She expected that. What she didn't expect was the red alert that blinked across the top of her dashboard. Fraud alert. A new auto loan application has been submitted using your name. Application submitted. Kyle Hanley status, pending, under review. Froze. For a moment her pulse was the only sound in the room, thick in her ears. She clicked through the details. The dealership, the loan amount, the credit pull authorization she hadn't given. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from rage so contained it felt surgical. Her phone buzzed. Jared. She didn't pick up. She already knew what she had to do. Kyle hadn't just ignored the envelope. He'd stepped over a line. At 6:42 a.m., while Amanda reheated old coffee and Kyle shuffled down the hallway with sleep-puffed eyes, Dot sat at her desk with the blinds half closed and the air thick with lemon furniture polish. Her laptop blinked softly as she toggled through the identity theft affidavit, each field filled out with practiced precision. Her hands never shook. She uploaded her ID, clicked submit. Then she opened all 3 credit bureau sites and activated full freezes. Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, no new lines of credit, no Remuspoland, no second chances, not under her name. She leaned back and exhaled once, long and level, then picked up the landline she hadn't used in weeks. The dealership's finance office was already open. Modesto Auto Group, said the woman on the line. How can I help you? My name is Dorothy Hanley, Dot said, voice calm as a ledger. You've received a loan application using my identity. I'm filing fraud claims as we speak. You'll want to cancel that paperwork before you end up holding a false note. The woman's tone shifted instantly. I'll flag it now. I'm so sorry. Is there? Dot hung up. There was nothing more to say. By 10:30 a.m., the storm arrived. Kyle burst into the sunroom, like a busted screen door in a windstorm. What the hell did you do? Dot didn't flinch. She sat in her chair with a legal pad on her lap, and a cup of iced black tea sweating onto the coaster beside her. What I always do, she said. Protect what's mine. Kyle's face turned the color of sunburn. They said my application triggered a fraud alert. I looked like an idiot, like I was trying to scam the system. She turned one page of her pad. Were you? You know I need that truck. I've got the down payment and everything. Then you should have used your name, Dot replied. Not mine. Amanda appeared behind him, arms crossed, her lips pressed tight like lipstick applied in anger. Is this about that stupid letter? She asked. You're seriously going to play this cold just because we didn't grovel when the bank sent a spam notice? Dot didn't look at her. She looked at Becca, who had just stepped into the hallway, earbuds out, watching everything unfold in stunned silence. Amanda pointed a perfectly manicured finger. I want access to your credit file. Now. If you're going to act like this affects the whole house, we deserve transparency. Dot stood up, slow and deliberate, like the old banker she used to be. Her voice lowered but sharpened. You want access to my credit? She tilted her head. Then give me access to your wedding vows. Let's see what promises you broke first. Amanda's jaw clicked shut. Becca blinked, trying to mask the tremble in her hand as she clutched her phone. Amanda's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. She's going to die in that sunroom, alone. Becca froze. She hadn't meant for Dot to hear that, but Dot did. She turned her face carved in composure. I'm not dying. She stepped past Amanda, toward the kitchen. I'm waiting. Amanda opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. Dot reached the fridge, pulled out her pitcher of water, and poured a glass with perfect steadiness. The ice chimed. The moment broke. An hour later her email pinged. Jared. Subject Hanley property. Urgent notice body. Foreclosure eligibility clock now ticking. Triggered by missed payment plus partial title freeze. Kyle officially exposed. Confirm action plan? Dot closed the laptop and slid it under her arm. She walked to the sunroom window and looked out over the back lawn where Amanda's float was still half deflated from last weekend, flopped like a discarded ego. They had borrowed her name. Now she was repossessing her legacy. The envelope was heavier than it looked, not in weight, but in consequence. Kyle stared at the bold black text. Notice of pre-foreclosure, immediate attention required. The paper crinkled slightly in his fist. Sweat soaked the collar of his t-shirt. But not from the heat. He stormed into the kitchen, shoving aside a half-empty cereal bowl. Amanda, she came rushing down the hallway in bare feet, silk robe barely tied, mascara still smudged from the night before. What now? Kyle tossed the letter across the island like a live grenade. This is happening. We've got 30 days to fix it, or the house is gone. Amanda's eyes scanned the notice, mouth tightening with every line. This is a scare tactic, right? Just a warning? Kyle's silence was answer enough. Amanda's voice rose. You said your mom would never do this, that she wouldn't dare. Kyle grabbed a beer from the fridge. 9:42 a.m., cracked it open with shaking fingers. I didn't think she had it in her. Amanda spun, hair whipping over her shoulder, and stomped to the sunroom. Dot was already waiting. She sat in her favorite chair, sorting silverware into cloth-lined boxes, each movement neat and unbothered. She didn't look up when Amanda entered. You're going to ruin everything, Amanda hissed. You're going to throw your own son into the street. Dot calmly placed a butter knife next to the teaspoons. I said I co-signed. I never said I co-signed forever. Amanda's mouth opened, but Dot cut her off. And for the record, you two ruined it long before I picked up a pen. Outside, the wind rustled dry leaves across the sidewalk. Inside, time started to count backward. That afternoon, while Kyle sulked in the den with the blinds drawn, Becca quietly stepped into Dot's room. Tell me what to do, she whispered. I want to help. Dot looked up from her inventory list, scanning each item like she was closing out a vault. You can be my second set of eyes. Some things can't be replaced, and I'm not trusting Amanda with any of them. Together they moved room by room. Becca carefully packed up albums, heirlooms, Dot's old loan officer plaques, the life Amanda had pretended didn't exist. In the middle of labeling a box, Den Family Docs, Becca glanced over. Where does all of this go? Dot answered without pausing. Some to Ortega's shed, some to safety deposit, the rest somewhere they'll never reach. That night, Dot opened the safe deposit box she had kept since 1988, untouched for over a decade. The cool interior of the bank vault smelled like metal and ammonia. Inside, 2 deed copies, the original cosign agreement, and 1 checkbook tied to an account Amanda didn't even know existed. She added a new envelope. Contingency Plan A, typed, signed, dated. As she locked the box, her phone buzzed. Jared. Text, meet Martin Roth. Probate secure trust attorney. No loose ends, I promise. Dot replied. Set it. We close this clean. The next day, Amanda made her move. Dot noticed the printer was warm. A single sheet sat in the tray. A scanned payment deferment form from the mortgage servicer. Dot's name, forged in Amanda's neat blocky handwriting. The signature was good. Not perfect, but close, too close. Dot stood there, silent, eyes narrowing as Amanda breezed past the sunroom window in a new dress, cell phone tucked to her ear. Laughing, always laughing, but this time, Dot wasn't watching anymore. She was documenting. And this time, Amanda wouldn't just be evicted. She'd be exposed. The imitation was almost flattering. Loops practiced. Pressure matched. A faint slant to the left, just like Dot's signature had always leaned. A banker's muscle memory from decades of signing contracts under fluorescent lighting. But Amanda had gotten one thing wrong. The date. Dot stood under the kitchen's warm overhead light, holding the printout with the forged deferment request. Amanda had postmarked it a day before the actual notice arrived. Sloppy. Overconfident. Dot didn't raise her voice. She didn't even blink. She slipped the paper into a manila envelope already labeled evidence, unauthorized activity, and added it to the file now growing thick beneath her bed. By noon, she was at the notary counter at Valley Title Services, silver hair pinned back, a blazer over her linen shirt like armor. She signed the affidavit with a steady hand as the notary stamped beside it, clean blue ink and a seal that couldn't be undone. Anything else you'd like notarized while you're here? The woman asked kindly. Dot reached into her tote and pulled out another document. declaration of intent to sell with power of attorney backup. Let's finish the set, she said. At 3:10 p.m. She sat across from Martin Roth in his wood-paneled office, the air smelling faintly of leather and eucalyptus. He reviewed the claim, eyes narrowing over the rim of his bifocals. She forged your name on a lender document? He asked. Dot passed him the notarized affidavit. Twice, different fonts. She forgot how my May curls. Martin chuckled. A dry, knowing sound. Well then we'll add forgery, with intent to deceive, into the package. The trustee will love that. He slid the file into a thick folder, then looked up. You ready for this to get loud? Dot smoothed her blouse. It's already hot. I'm just turning the dial. Back at the house, the walls practically vibrated with tension. Kyle waited for her in the entryway, wringing his hands like a kid caught smoking. He looked older than he had 2 weeks ago. The kind of aging you can't blame on sunlight. Can we talk? He asked. Like a family? Dot didn't pause on her way to the sunroom. Families talk before the heat wave, she said without turning. Not after they lock the door. He followed her, desperate now. We can fix this. I'll talk to Amanda. We'll find a way to refinance. You should have done that 7 years ago. Dot replied. I gave you the time. You used it on denial. Amanda appeared in the hallway, barefoot, livid. If you're gonna keep poisoning this house, then don't bother coming to dinner anymore, she snapped. I mean it. You're not welcome at my table. Dot stopped in the doorway. She turned slowly, a calm expression masking the quiet blade behind her voice. I stopped eating from your table weeks ago. Amanda froze. Dot stepped around her and returned to her room. From her drawer she pulled out a pre-drafted letter, stamped and dated 14-day notice, intent to trigger sale clause. At exactly 5:47 p.m., as the evening light bled gold through the blinds, she slid the envelope across the kitchen island, where Amanda now sat alone, checking her phone with shallow, panicked breaths. Legal notice, Dot said flatly. Open it or don't. Clock starts either way. Amanda stared at it but didn't move. Dot didn't wait. She walked back to the sunroom, where Becca sat sketching the kitchen floor plan in pencil, quiet and observant as ever. Dot sat beside her. What's that? She asked softly. Becca smirked. Just planning for the furniture, in a house where people don't scream. Dot nodded once, her smile faint but sounds like a rare kind of floor plan. In the kitchen behind them, Amanda tore open the envelope. The ripping sound was jagged, final. The clause was now active. The roof had just become a ticking clock. It started with a drone shot. Dot watched from her sunroom as Amanda orchestrated the whole thing, Kyle hoisting the drone into the air like he knew what he was doing. Amanda twirling in a flowing beach cover-up, drink in hand, walking barefoot across the flagstone patio Dot had paid for. The caption that appeared hours later on Amanda's latest home influencer reel made Dot's blood cool. Backyard dreams we built from scratch. Modesto mansion life hash. Our forever home. Built? Dot could still remember the check she'd written to the contractor, who poured the slab, back when Amanda was pregnant with Becca, and Kyle had just tanked his 3rd job that year. She replayed the reel again. Then she opened a new tab. At 9:17 p.m., Dot submitted a formal claim to the social media platform under their intellectual property and fraudulent representation policy. She included screenshots of the mortgage documents, the co-signed deed, and flagged multiple posts in which Amanda falsely claimed homeownership under her name alone. 3 hours later, Amanda's reel was removed. A flag appeared on her page, video unavailable due to property ownership dispute. By sunrise, 2 more were gone. Dot moved like water. She created a throwaway email, a new account under a fake name, at Modesto Truth Watch. She posted stills of Amanda's home tour videos side by side, with select redacted legal documents, Dot's name on the deed, the co-signed signature, the foreclosure warning notice. No commentary, just hard proof. The posts didn't go viral, but they did the job. Comments flooded Amanda's past content. Wait, do you even own that house? Fake it till you lose it, huh? Looks like grandma paid for that porch swing. Amanda's small brand deal, a low-tier homeware company out of LA, quietly unfollowed her the next day. By the end of the week, their collab post vanished. Kyle tried to play cleanup. He cornered Dot one evening, just as she returned from the mailbox. The sun was setting blood orange behind the roofline. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but you're embarrassing us," he snapped, voice low but shaking. "You want to throw away your family just to win a goddamn pissing match?" Dot didn't answer. She simply turned, walked up the steps, and waved casually at the Ring doorbell camera mounted above the front door. Moments later, Kyle's phone buzzed. "Ring alert. Someone is at your door." Then again, "Ring alert. Your video was accessed by homeowner Dorothy Hanley." Dot didn't say a word. She didn't have to. He'd just been outmaneuvered in his own surveillance system. The next morning, Mrs. Ortega arrived with a wrapped bundle of garden cuttings, lavender, mint, and something Dot didn't recognize. "They smell better than tension," she said, setting them gently on the porch. "Saw that poor girl yelling into her ring light again. You know she tried to stage a sponsored brunch with folding chairs and borrowed succulents." Dot raised an eyebrow. "She hasn't returned the hydrangea planter either." Mrs. Ortega sighed. "You're burning down a house with no water, dear. That's a rare skill." Dot allowed herself a small smile. "Sometimes you start with the Wi-Fi." By midday, Amanda's follower count had dropped by nearly 600. Her latest video had 0 comments. They were turned off. The algorithm was no longer on her side. That evening, Dot's email chimed. It was from Jared. Subject: decision point body. Final step: title buyout or trigger default. Window closing. Confirm path. Dot stared at the screen, calm as ever. Outside, Amanda's ring light sat abandoned in the yard, its reflection flickering weakly in the pool like a dying star. The roof wasn't just slipping anymore, it was about to fall. It only took one click. One cold, deliberate click on the initiate buyout clause line of the contract. Dot had co-authored over a decade ago, buried in Section 11, under joint owner exit terms. The page didn't ask for confirmation. It simply loaded a new screen. Title: buyout process engaged. Evaluation team will be assigned within 24 hours. Dot closed the laptop and set it gently on the kitchen table where Amanda's latest neutral tone vase still sat, filled with fake eucalyptus. Outside, cicadas buzzed against the dying daylight. The temperature hadn't dropped below 100 in 3 days. The Hanleys would soon learn what heat really meant. The news hit just after noon. Kyle stood in the living room, holding the valuation report Jared had emailed him, a preliminary estimate for the home's fair market buyout. His hands were shaking. 612,000, he barked. "That can't be right. The mortgage is half that." Amanda hovered by the fridge, barefoot, eyeliner smudged. "Is that the number we have to pay her?" Kyle didn't answer. He just dropped the printout on the counter, sweat bleeding through the armpits of his shirt. From her chair in the sunroom, Dot didn't move. "That's your half," she said evenly. "Fair market split. You want to stay, you pay." Amanda's mouth opened like a car door in traffic. "We don't have that kind of money, Kyle. You said she wouldn't actually go through with it." Kyle gripped the counter. "She's bluffing." Dot stood, slowly. "I don't bluff. I sign." The room fell silent. A knock came at the door an hour later. Jared had sent an appraiser from Lender First, clipboard in hand. Polite but efficient. Dot showed him around the property herself. Amanda tried to interfere once, offering iced tea, asking about comps, but he brushed her off professionally. At the end of the walkthrough, the appraiser turned to Dot. "You'll be first contact on the listing if this proceeds, right?" Dot nodded. "Martin Roth's firm is preparing the documents now. Becca found her that evening. She didn't say anything at first, just slipped a folded piece of paper under Dot's bedroom door." Dot picked it up, opened it carefully. It was a handwritten note in blue ink, blocky and honest. "If you go, take me with you." Dot stared at the words for a long moment. Then she stepped out into the hallway, where Becca was waiting, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I don't want to be here if they're going to keep screaming," Becca said, "or pretending they're the victims." Dot placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're already coming," she said. "Just not where they expect." The next day, Martin sent over the official listing agreement with Dot's name as the sole point of contact. No Kyle. No Amanda. She signed it with the same pen Amanda had once stolen to write thank you notes for her fake birthday giveaway haul. Later that afternoon, Dot stood on the front porch as the process server walked up the path, crisp khakis, sunglasses, clipboard in hand. Amanda opened the door, her face tired and mottled with patchy bronzer. "Mrs. Amanda Hanley?" the man asked. Yes?" He handed over the envelope. "Legal notice. 10 days to vacate or execute the buyout. Failure to comply results in forced sale." Amanda didn't speak. Her fingers clutched the paper too tightly, creasing the corner. Dot stood quietly at the edge of the porch watching the scene unfold. She didn't smile, but her silence had weight, the kind that filled every empty room behind the closed blinds. Kyle paced, he already knew. The panic had begun the moment Dot's name showed up on the seller's line. Inside Dot's nightstand, the trust documents waited. So did the wire instructions. So did the last chess move. The first sign of desperation wasn't the yelling. It was the silence between texts. Kyle stared at his phone like it owed him money. One friend left him on read. Another sent a vague "sorry bro, tight month." His old roommate replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else. Even his old boss ghosted him after the second paragraph of his short-term bridge loan message. Amanda didn't do silence. She did spin. By noon, her Instagram story featured a tearful plea over a moody piano track. "We've built our lives in this home. If you believe in family, please share and support." The GoFundMe link sat underneath. "Keep our forever home. Help us stay together." It raised $73.32. Then someone reposted Amanda's summer haul video, Target bags, a Dyson Airwrap, and a $300 Anthropologie mirror. Under the caption, "Girl, where'd the donations go?" The campaign was reported for misleading claims, shut down within hours. Inside, the heat pressed into every corner of the house, thick with tension and stale takeout. Boxes were everywhere now, cheap ones from the liquor store, duct tape fraying at the edges. Kyle muttered curses while stuffing tools and mismatched cords into a cooler. Amanda sobbed over a blender she couldn't find the box for. Dot sat on the porch beneath a sun hat, sipping sweet tea with fresh mint and watching them like a queen, witnessing the fall of a clumsy regime. The shade stretched just far enough to keep her comfortable. She didn't blink when Amanda dropped a ceramic salad bowl with a loud shatter. Didn't move when Kyle slammed the screen door hard enough to make it groan. Behind her, a small U-Haul truck rumbled into the driveway. "Mrs. Ortega waved from the passenger side. "Brought your muscle, Dot. My nephew owes me 3 favors and 1 gin rummy lot." Dot nodded. "You're a saint. I'm 80. Same thing." She stepped out of the cab and squinted toward the house. "You sure you want to leave that much glass with them? They look like they're one bad mood away from a plate fight." "Nothing in there's sharp enough to cut me anymore," Dot said. Becca came out quietly through the side gate, a canvas tote slung over one shoulder. She sat beside Dot and began packing her sketch pads into a flat box, careful not to bend the corners. "You don't need to carry that," Dot murmured. "I want to," Becca said. Dot looked at her, and for the first time in weeks allowed herself a real smile. Not smug, not tight-lipped, just proud. Amanda finally snapped. She came out barefoot, mascara streaking like war paint, a half-packed box of mugs pressed to her chest. "You don't have to do this," she shouted. Her voice cracked around the edges. "This was your family's house. You're ruining it." Dot stood slowly, the screen door clicking behind her. She took one step forward, letting her shadow cross the threshold like a quiet line being drawn. "I already did," she said, voice even. "You just didn't notice until the furniture started moving." Amanda dropped the box. One mug cracked down the middle. Inside, Kyle cursed again. Dot turned her back on the house and walked toward the porch railing, where a clipboard waited with the listing paperwork Jared had sent over. She flipped through each page like she was reading bedtime stories. Methodical, patient, final. Mrs. Ortega handed her a pen. Becca held her breath. Dot signed, price firm ownership. Clean behind her, a wind gusted through the porch chimes. 3 clear notes before silence. The page curled slightly in the sun. The seal dried. Dot didn't look back. Amanda scrolled Zillow like she was looking for a way out. The screen's glow lit her face as the living room around her sank into dusk. She swiped past condos in Stockton and fixer-uppers in Merced, muttering half-prayers and profanity. Each tap chipped a little deeper into the illusion that someone somewhere would offer a loophole. Meanwhile, Dot had already posted the reality. The listing went live at 8:03 Make Sorp with Jared's email pinging seconds after published. All verifications clear. MLS hash. Hash 492398. Active seller. Dorothy M. Hanley. Dot sat at the breakfast nook with a fresh cup of black coffee, watching light move across the countertop. The listing read like poetry to her. Charming 3-bedroom ranch style in established Modesto neighborhood. Immaculate condition. Title clean. Co-ownership cleared. No heirs attached. Ready for transfer. Becca was the first to see it. She didn't say anything, just walked into the sunroom, slid a velvet jewelry pouch across the table, and sat down cross-legged on the floor beside Dot's chair. Dot opened the pouch to find a handmade braided bracelet, woven from fabric scraps and an old silver button. "I've had this since 4th grade," Becca said quietly. "You're the only one I trust to keep it." Dot didn't cry. She wasn't built for that anymore. But she reached out, clasped the bracelet, and ran her thumb across the worn button like it was a seal. "You always knew what was real before the rest of them," she said. That afternoon, Amanda tried to delete the listing. She logged into Jared's brokerage portal, guessed every variation of the password she'd seen him type at family barbecues. When that failed, she opened a chat window and claimed unauthorized use of her property photos. The moderator replied within minutes. Listing confirmed by legal title holder. No action necessary. Amanda threw her phone across the room. It hit a lamp. The lamp cracked. Kyle was no better. That evening, driving past the downtown broker's office, on his way back from yet another dead-end conversation with a loan officer, he glanced left and saw it. A large poster in the window. The home. Their home. Cozy 3BD in quiet cul-de-sac. Title cleared. Asking $619,000. No heirs, no heirs, no future. Just Dot. Kyle pulled over and sat with the engine running, sweat dampening his back, jaw clenched so tight it trembled. He didn't go inside. Meanwhile, Dot had a visitor. Ruth, her older sister, parked her Camry under the shady part of Ortega's driveway and marched up the front walk like she was coming to deliver a verdict. But her face cracked into a grin the moment she saw Dot open the door. "Well, look at you," Ruth said, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. "You're finally sleeping without sweat under your neck." Dot led her to the porch, poured iced tea into tall glasses, and clinked them gently. "You're really doing it," Ruth said. "Taking the house and the heat with you." Dot smirked. "They thought I'd die in that sunroom. They don't know what a cooled-down Hanley woman is capable of." The two sisters sat, quietly sipping and watching the sun fall behind the rooftops. As the shadows stretched long across the yard, Dot's phone buzzed. Email from Jared. Subject: offer received body. Full asking price. No contingencies. Buyer flexible on close. Confirm intent to proceed. Dot stared at the screen, the light catching the silver button on her wrist. Amanda had posted filtered brunches. Kyle had borrowed names and time. Dot had posted a reality check. And someone with money, sense, and no ties, was ready to pay. The deadline hung in the air like the heat. Undeniable, breathless, final. Dot stood at the kitchen counter, her fingers brushing across the envelope that confirmed it all. Closing date August 15th, 12 p.m. There would be no extensions, no renegotiations, no mercy baked into fine print. Amanda found out the way she found everything too late, and from someone else. She burst into the sunroom, cheeks flushed and damp, hair pulled up in a hasty bun, her voice a tight whisper barely holding back panic. "They're saying we have to be out by the 15th. Dot didn't look up from the box she was packing, her hands wrapping old tea tins in soft dish towels. Amanda took a breath, tried a different tone, softer, sugary. "Couldn't we just stay? Just until school starts. 2 more weeks, max." "Becca's still figuring out." Dot sealed the box with a smooth strip of packing tape. The sound split the silence cleanly. "Schools have books," she said, turning slowly to meet Amanda's eyes. "They don't teach entitlement." Amanda blinked like she'd been slapped. In the next room, Becca quietly folded one of Dot's floral print blankets and placed it atop a worn leather journal. She didn't speak, but she stayed close, helping in the way that mattered without being asked. Dot didn't need noise. She needed movement, order, completion. They worked for hours like that. Quiet cooperation, shared breath, the rustle of cardboard and crumpled newspaper filling the space where arguments once lived. Outside, the sun blistered over the front yard. The for sale sign now bore a bright red banner, pending, closing in progress. Kyle hadn't spoken to Dot in 3 days. He floated like a ghost between the garage and the couch, his pride shriveled and silent. Mrs. Ortega arrived with a brown paper bag of lemon muffins and a roll of painter's tape. "Never seen someone stage a house and destroy 2 egos at the same time," she said with a wink. "You're a force, Dorothy." Dot offered a tired smile. "I was always better at endings than beginnings." Mrs. Ortega pulled her into a hug, smelling of sunblock and rosemary. Her voice lowered as she whispered, "I hope they remember the heat next time." Dot looked past her, toward the porch swing still creaking in the breeze. "They won't," she said. "But I will." The next morning, the buyers arrived. A young couple with a quiet realtor, khaki slacks, and cautious optimism. They walked the perimeter with smiles, their voices muffled behind polite laughter. Amanda watched from behind the living room curtains, panic rising with every step the strangers took. Becca leaned in close to Dot as they sat near the back window. "They look normal." Dot smiled. "That's the trick. Normal people own homes. Entitled ones lose them." Then came the scream. From the front lawn, sharp and ragged, a sound yanked from Amanda's throat as she saw the buyers walk through her hallway, inspect her kitchen island, comment on the pantry layout, like she was already gone. Dot didn't flinch. She just stood and walked to the porch, where the heat had finally settled like an old friend. One more box sat by the door, sealed and labeled Becca, for dorm. Dot picked it up and handed it to the movers without a word. The lawn was chaos. Amanda yelling. Kyle standing beside her, stunned. The realtor whispering apologies to the buyers. But Dot wasn't in the scene anymore. She was past it. Above it. Finished. Because this time, the house wasn't being shown. It was being reclaimed. The money landed with the quiet weight of justice. Dot sat at the breakfast table in the sunroom, her tea cooling beside her laptop, when the notification popped up. Wire confirmation, $308,500. Escrow transfer complete. Recipient Dorothy M. Hanley. Status, settled. She didn't smile. Not right away. She just closed the laptop slowly, like sealing a book she'd waited a lifetime to finish. The title was cleared. The house was sold. Kyle and Amanda's names, officially removed. Down the hall, Amanda was screaming into a pillow. Kyle had taken to pacing like a feral dog, pausing only to stare at the door, as if it owed him an explanation. Neither of them had the strength left to pretend anymore. Dot didn't go near them. She packed the last of her journals and teacups, moving as softly as if the house were already someone else's. Becca followed her from room to room, helping tape the final boxes, her silence unusually calm. Then, just before lunch, Becca pulled an envelope from her hoodie pocket and handed it over. It was worn at the edges, but the return address glowed like a beacon. Dot opened it slowly. "Congratulations. We're thrilled to welcome Rebecca Hanley to the fall cohort of UC Santa Cruz. Becca lip, eyes shiny with something close to fear. I didn't want to tell you until it was real. I mean, I applied late, and Dot raised a hand, still holding the letter. We'll pick your dorm in the shade, she said. Someplace with space, no screens, no yelling. Becca exhaled, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled without caution. That evening, Amanda sent her final message. Dot found it blinking on her phone like a dying signal. You ruined everything. You'll regret this. She stared at the screen, then pressed delete. No reply. No reaction. Silence was more permanent than revenge. Instead, Dot logged into her private trust account, the one Martin Roth had helped her build for legacy management. She opened a new folder titled Rebecca, Tuition, Room and Boardacy Reserve. She uploaded a copy of the acceptance letter, set automatic disbursements to align with semester deadlines, and named herself trustee. The line item read, Purpose, because she saw me. Outside, the moving truck rumbled to life. Mrs. Ortega waved from across the street, holding a pitcher of Sun tea and a thank you card with a $50 Target gift card inside. You kept your word, she said. You left the house standing, just not the fantasy. Dot gave her a firm nod. Fantasy was never mine to clean up. With Becca in the passenger seat of the car, earbuds in, sketchbook open on her lap, Dot turned the ignition and drove away without looking in the rear view. They reached the new neighborhood just before dusk. Quiet, tree-lined, shaded. No cracked sidewalks. No drama in the air. Her new place was modest, 2 bedrooms, nothing flashy, but the key turned without resistance. No deadbolt sticking. No lock jiggling like it didn't want her there. It clicked. Clean. Final. Dot stepped into the cool air and paused at the doorway, letting the stillness wrap around her like a blanket pulled fresh from the dryer. A breeze passed through open windows, carrying the scent of sage and distant citrus. In the kitchen, a glass pitcher waited on the counter. Not Amanda's curated fake decor, just glass, clean water and lemon wedges. Real things. Dot placed her keys in a ceramic bowl by the door and looked around the living room. A clean slate. Her name on the deed. Her granddaughter safe beside her. No more shared walls with resentment. No more silence punished by locks. Just a home. One she owned. One she chose. She opened the hall closet to start putting things away and froze. On the top shelf sat a welcome basket. Inside, fresh towels, a note handwritten by the previous owner. Hope this house brings you peace. Dot touched the note gently. It already had. The trowel sliced clean through the soil, not dry and cracked like the yard she'd escaped, but soft, cool with mulch welcoming. Dot knelt carefully, knees padded by the folded garden mat she'd unpacked just that morning, and lowered a plump echeveria into its new home. Behind her, the porch fan spun in lazy circles. The breeze nudged at her collar, lifting strands of silver hair. Becca sat cross-legged on the porch swing, pencil moving steadily across her sketch pad, the only sound the gentle scrape of lead against textured paper. No yelling, no doors slamming, no heat pressing against her skin like judgment, just shade, chosen. Dot wiped her hands on a towel and stood slowly, eyes sweeping over the line of succulents taking shape beside the stone path. Jade, ghost plant, hens and chicks, all low maintenance, quietly resilient. Survivors. Like her. Becca looked up from her sketch and smiled. You gave them good names. Dot shrugged. Felt rude not to. Plants that mind their own business deserve recognition. Becca tilted her page toward her. This one's yours, she said, pointing to a tall columnar cactus with exaggerated glasses and a little sun hat. Guess who inspired it? Dot chuckled. Genuine and soft. Better give her a will and a backbone. Her phone buzzed. She hesitated before checking it, the warmth of the moment already sinking into her bones. But curiosity still lived in her fingertips. Kyle. I know you're still mad, but we're family. Doesn't that count for something? Dot stared at the words for a long time, then she tapped delete. No pause, no second glance, she turned back toward the porch. Family sits together, she said, meeting Becca's eyes. They don't sweat each other out. Becca's pencil froze mid-stroke. Her nod was slow, certain. By late afternoon, Ruth arrived in her straw sun hat and oversized sunglasses, clutching a brown paper bag like it held state secrets. "I brought sparkling cider," she announced. "No booze, just fizz. Let's not ruin the peace you paid so dearly for." Dot stepped aside to let her in. "Didn't know you celebrated air quality." Ruth raised the bottle like a trophy. To reclaimed air and chosen silence. They toasted on the porch, plastic cups clinking with gentle cheer. Dot watched the wind move through the trees, casting shifting patterns of light on the walkway like Morse code from the sky. Her old lawn chair, the one she'd once collapsed into under 107 degrees Fahrenheit of betrayal, now sat at the edge of her new driveway. A small handwritten note hung from one of the arms. "Free, like me." A jogger slowed, read it, nodded once, and kept moving. Becca set her sketchbook down beside her and leaned in. "Grandma," she said, voice low with mischief, "want to see my latest drawing?" Dot raised an eyebrow. "As long as it's not me in a sun hat again, I'm not trying to become a meme." Becca grinned. "Not this time." She flipped the page. The sketch was detailed, shaded to near realism, an aerial view of the old house. Flames curled from the roof, smoke bleeding into the sky in careful strokes, but at the center, untouched and calm, sat a lawn chair in the middle of the chaos. Dot blinked. "Is that?" Becca nodded. "You, watching it all burn, not lifting a finger." Dot stared at the drawing, then laughed, loud and full and clear. "Damn," she whispered. "You really see me." Becca smirked. "Always did." Dot reached over, placed her hand gently over her granddaughter's. The sun dipped behind the trees, casting a wide stretch of cooling shadow over the porch. And for the first time in years, she didn't just breathe. She exhaled. The hum of the air conditioner was the first sound Dot heard. Not wind, not shouting, not the dry rattle of a locked sunroom door. Just that quiet, even breath of temperature set on her terms, steady, cool, and entirely under her control. She opened her eyes slowly. Morning light poured through the half-open blinds in long gold ribbons, soft against the pale blue walls of her bedroom. A breeze slipped through the screened window, rustling the leaves of the succulent she'd brought in last night. Dot sat up and stretched, not hurried, not stiff. For the first time in years, her joints didn't feel like they were bracing against something unseen. She moved to the kitchen, her slippers padding against clean tile. No crumbs on the counter, no passive-aggressive notes about missed milk runs, no Amanda. She filled the kettle, listening to the satisfying gurgle of water heating, an ordinary sound that now felt like a luxury. On the porch, the tea steeped in her favorite mug as sunlight filtered through the trellis overhead. She cupped the mug in both hands and breathed in the scent, peppermint and lavender, calming, intentional. Inside, Becca zipped the last pocket of her canvas backpack. She wore a deep green hoodie and paint-stained jeans. College move-in day had arrived, but she didn't look nervous, just ready. Dot set her tea down and reached into the side drawer, pulling out a slim black folder tied with a green ribbon. She handed it to Becca without ceremony. "What's this?" Becca asked, voice soft. "Your trust file. Tuition's paid, housing secure, and there's an emergency fund if the world gets noisy." Becca held it like it might float away if she let go. "You didn't have to." "I know," Dot said. "That's why I did." On the kitchen counter sat a note, folded with care. Dot hadn't seen it until now. Her name was written in Becca's neat, careful lettering. She opened it. "You gave me shade. I'll always give it back." Dot folded the note slowly and slid it into her keepsake box, right next to the photo of Becca, as a toddler holding a juice box like a champagne flute. Becca opened the front door, sun pouring in behind her. "You okay?" she asked. Dot nodded. More than Becca paused. "You want me to send you pictures when I get there?" "Only if you want me to critique your dorm feng shui." They both laughed. Dot stepped out onto the porch as Becca drove off, her car stuffed with art supplies and independence. The house was quiet again, but this time it wasn't lonely. She moved to the entryway and picked up the final frame she hadn't yet hung. It was matte black, clean edges. Inside, centered and underlined in simple serif font, was the clause she'd written years ago into the co-signed mortgage. Ownership rights retained upon default. Signed, not shared. She hung it above the thermostat. It belonged there. Outside, Mrs. Ortega was watering her rosemary with a plastic pitcher, robe blowing in the breeze. She looked up and waved. Dot waved back. They didn't need to talk. Some people just stayed in your corner by standing still. Dot stepped back inside. Her home held no echoes. The silence was earned, not imposed. The AC adjusted with a soft click, just a few degrees Fahrenheit cooler than before. Perfect. She moved through the living room, past the half-rigged book on the side table and the folded throw blanket Becca had left on the couch. Everything was in its place, untouched by resentment. Dot picked up her tea again, took a slow sip, and walked toward the sunlit window. The house behind her was sold. The damage Amanda and Kyle had caused no longer lived in her paperwork, her credit, or her walls. They'd locked her out once. She had turned the key in a new door, and left theirs behind. They left me in the heat, but I controlled the thermostat, and the deed.